I want you to imagine that you're in grad school for your chosen professional field. This is a field where your grades really matter. They determine the kinds of jobs that you're going to be able to get afterwards. And you're working super hard, you're studying diligently, you're doing your best to get amazing grades. But then, despite your absolute best efforts, you end up getting a subpar grade in a class that really matters. What do you do next? My first instinct would be to run away, hide, never tell anyone about the grade, and feel horribly embarrassed every time I uploaded my transcript to any job applications. And your first instinct might be the same. Most high stress, high achievers hate making mistakes. They work very hard to avoid them. And if a mistake does occur, which it inevitably does, they stress themselves out to no end and they feel terrible about themselves. And I was listening to a podcast recently where someone was facing the exact situation that I just described. They were in law school, a field where your grades absolutely matter for your job prospects. And despite their absolute best efforts, they got a bad grade in one of their critical classes. And what they did next really surprised me. They went and talked to their professor. They worked with them to understand exactly what their gaps were and why they got a bad grade. They made a plan to improve those skills and worked with that professor to do so. And the professor was so impressed with their dedication and level of ownership that they ended up writing one of their letters of recommendation for judicial clerkships. And then the student actually ended up getting one of those prestigious clerkships, partly because the judge called up this professor and was so impressed by how the student had reacted to their bad grade. One of the main reasons that you're scared of making mistakes is that you think that your mistakes will hurt the relationships that you care about. You think your mistakes are a vector of disconnection between you and the people that you want to impress. It's things like, if I get a bad grade, my teacher will think I'm stupid. If I present a bad analysis, my manager will be mad at me. If my team doesn't crush it on this project, our client will lose trust in us. Or even, if I do a bad job, I'll be mad at myself. Because yes, you too are one of the people that you want to impress. And it's true, a mistake can be a vector of disconnection, but it can also be a powerful vector of connection. You just have to make it one. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to reverse the roles. If you were the professor seeing someone getting a bad grade in your class, or if you were the manager watching an analyst present an incorrect analysis, or if you were the client and the engagement is not quite going right, what would you want the other person to do? What would that person have to do to regain your trust? Chances are your answer is probably something like this. That person would, first of all, just have to realize that something's going wrong. They'd have to take ownership for what's happening. They'd have to develop a hypothesis for why this mistake happened and what needs to happen differently next time to prevent it. You'd probably want them to come to you and involve you in the problem solving around how to do better next time. And then they'd have to actually do demonstrably better the next time. And if the other person did all of that, you would probably walk away equally or more impressed than if everything had just gone smoothly. Not just because they did better the second time, but because of the experience they created for you around their mistake. They started problem solving proactively instead of just awkwardly ignoring what happened. They came to you with proposed solutions so you didn't have to do all the work yourself. They made it really easy for you to give your feedback and input. They didn't make you emotionally babysit them. They took full ownership for what happened without going into a full-blown insecurity tailspin that you now have to manage. And they framed the whole thing as a one-time solvable process problem, not an embarrassing, bone-deep, fundamental me problem, which means that now you also just see it as a process problem. So yes, your relationship with this person broke a little bit when they made their first mistake, but then it came back stronger when they handled it like this. It's kind of like one of those Japanese kintsugi bowls that breaks, but then the crack is repaired in gold. This is the experience that you can create too for the people that are affected by your mistakes. This is the experience you can create for yourself when you are the one who's upset by what you did. And now, obviously, plan A is not to make any mistakes. I know that. And you're not in any danger of suddenly running around making tons of mistakes left and right just because of this video. But I want you to realize mistakes are going to happen. You are going from good to great. You are going after expert level pursuits where you will fail a good portion of the time, even when you give your all. Roger Federer won 80% of his matches, but only 54% of the points that he played. he would get a B minus on his match win rate and an F on his point win rate. And that's not because he's a terrible tennis player. He's obviously not. That's because that's just how hard expert level pursuits really are. So rather than trying to avoid mistakes at all costs and going into a shame spiral when they inevitably happen, turn your mistakes into superpowers. Turn your mistakes into vectors of connection with the people that you want to impress, including yourself. If you can do that, then you are always in a win-win situation, regardless of whether you succeed or you fail. Now, if you're anything like me, the fear of making mistakes or doing things wrong is one of the major fears in your life. I want you to take a step back and think for a second. How does this fear influence everything that you do? How does it impact how you do your work, how you show up at a meeting, how you decide what to do next in your career, how you do your chores, how you plan a vacation, how you interact with your spouse, how you raise your kids? And then I want you to think about, what would your life be like if you were free of this fear? How would you handle yourself differently at work? How would you make career decisions differently? How would you do your chores differently? How would you rest and unwind differently? How would your marriage change? How would your parenting change? How would your relationship with yourself change? I really want you to imagine being unshackled from this fear. I want you to imagine standing up straight and being unafraid. Who would you be? Sit with that version of yourself for just a minute. And then I want you to imagine being that version of yourself all of the time. Then I want you to come talk to me and let's make a plan for making that happen. That future version of you knows that you can do it. They know that you can get there. They're waiting for you right there on the other side. And they're going to be so proud of you for taking the first step. So go to the link above and book a free consult call.